Thank you so much for
Amazing.
joining me this morning.
No, all
I'm gonna be
mine.
on. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was very intimidated this morning, knowing that I had this coming up. Uh, I'm very impressed with your scope of work, with what you do.
Oh, good.
I watched, with Human, and then just watching your TED Talk, watching some of your interviews. Um, it's fascinating work that you do. For the audience purpose, tell me a little bit about your job as a paleoanthropologist. I think I
Yeah.
said that right.
Yeah, no, you did. You did. Some people hurt themselves when saying it, so well done. Um, but also, like, yeah, I think basically I pretty much work every hour of the day for like a compact amount of time and then just burn out myself for the rest of the time. So I'm just a testament to what can be done if you just put a whole year into like 2 months and then just like hope for the best and then just watch the person die afterwards. But no, so basically I guess I'm an explorer. I specialize in unstable and hostile territories, politically unstable and hostile territories. So the kind of places which are really difficult to get insurance for. And then I'm also a paleoanthropologist, which is, it's like, imagine there's a Venn diagram and it's like Ross from Friends, and Indiana Jones. It's like the little bit that overlaps. It's like, yeah, I wake up for very, very, very ancient humans, shall we say. And so yeah, that's my kind of field of expertise. And I make television shows and radio shows on all kinds of subjects, but these days, a lot of the time, it's on human evolution, where we come from.
No, it's interesting because this is kind of a broad question, so I apologize if it's a little wild out there.
No.
But I mean, Indiana Jones, we have the characters in The Mummy. We have, I mean, just recently I met the actress for Dora the Explorer. I mean, I can go on and on about how Hollywood um, portrays, this line of work from
Yeah.
for decades now. Why is it that we don't necessarily embrace that as in real life, as far as advancing the science, maybe paying more attention to it, more funding? If this is what entertains us for decades now,
Yeah.
where's the disconnect, do you feel?
So I do think, like, I mean, I will say Indiana Jones has done archaeology the biggest public service. Like the biggest. Like if you speak to so many archaeologists, first of all, loads of them, if you get them drunk enough, will admit that Indiana Jones was a hero when they were younger. Um, but I think I don't know. It's funny because I feel like everybody understands why it's so important to fund space stuff. Like people have really, space has captured people's imagination. And the irony is who we are, the story of us, where we come from, hasn't quite captured the imagination in the same way. And I do think partly that is because we actually haven't been making science shows about it in quite the same way. If I look at, I do television, the amount of science shows on space is really noticeable. Whereas the amount of science shows on archaeology it's, it's not huge, but it's somewhat present. But then the kind of deep time archaeology, which is where it gets really interesting. I mean, this is the first show of this size in a long, long, long time
I think
on
I think
that
I
subject.
I appreciate it quite a bit, because I mean, just some of the things I've heard you say really just turned me kind of into the thinking man, as far as just sitting there and trying to process it. I think recently the one that stuck with me is, you think of social media and how the algorithms use our anger, use fear, use those types of things to, like, rage bait us, because it creates a bigger response than happiness or joy or things like that. And I think I've heard you say
Yeah.
something like, "Yeah, no, that was a survival trait in the past, because
Yes.
you gotta know the things that can hurt you. They're more important than the things that can, soothe or help you or be
Yeah.
good for you." And I'm thinking, like,
Yeah.
what other um, just natural base traits do we display on a daily basis that I'm not really aware of?
Yeah. So what you're describing there, by the way, is what we call the negativity bias. You explained it really, really well. But the thing with the negativity bias is like people always go, "Oh, be glass half full, not glass half empty." I'm like, as a species, we are just glass half empty. And it is a survival. It is a survival tactic. And it's like, there are studies that, I mean, there's like study upon study on this. Like there's one study where they got $50 and they showed that people that lose $50 have a stronger emotional response to it than people that find $50. It's just like so depressing. But it makes sense if you think about us as Paleolithic people and we've evolved to survive and not to thrive, and it's more important that you remember the bad stuff. But like procrastination is a big one for me. So I procrastinate all the time. And you would think, if you just think about logically, people that procrastinate, why would that's so negative? Why wouldn't that have been bred out of the human line? Like some ancestor, like all the ancestors that just kept procrastinating, nobody wanted to mate with them. Like you'd assume, they didn't get very far in life. It wasn't, but actually, if you think about the fact that like we would be old people back in the Paleolithic. Like if you got to 30, you were old. So in a world where you might die tomorrow, does it matter as much that you procrastinate? Like, is it as big of a deal that you leave the thing for tomorrow that you should kind of do today? Whereas in our modern world, where most people are in 9 to 5s, where, you've got to do a certain amount of work, otherwise you might not, succeed at your job and you might get fired. And if you get fired, blah, blah. In that world, procrastination, this one, the one we're living in right now, procrastination is a big deal. It's just it didn't used to be as big of a deal in that world. So there's a lot of examples like that. There's also kind of weird and wonderful ones as well, where you think, what is the full story of that? I am kind of intrigued by the fact that by two things. One is the menopause, and one is having men not having penis bones. So I don't know what PG rating is this show, but
You're
like
good.
basically, okay, so basically, menopause, I would say, screws women over in the sense that will we really fully ever reach equality if women have a shelf life on when they can have kids, right? Because otherwise, like, you could just get on with your life and at 65, once you've, happy with your career, you just go have a kid, right? Which we know some men do, right? Um, but menopause evolved because women needed help. Mothers needed help, and their mothers were the best help for it. You needed grandmothers, like grandmothers are what kept us alive, right? And because our babies are a nightmare, like all the parents that are listening to this, let's just admit that. I mean, I was just with my niece and nephew this weekend, and I needed to sleep. Like it was a lot. It was a lot. Like I love them more than anything in the world, but it's a lot. And the thing is, if you think about giraffes are born and within 30 minutes they are standing, right? Our babies just take forever. They are in a state of arrested development more than any other species. And so that's why you end up with the menopause, which again, I think screws women over. The penis bone, right? Let's just be real, how many men out there and women would rather that a penis bone still existed? Now, most of the other primates have penis bones. We don't have penis bones. Our men, basically, there was a move away from penis bones. And again, that's something that you think, well, that logically doesn't make sense, except that it's probably because we became more monogamous. And the thing is, if you think about it, if you're more monogamous, not completely monogamous, I'm not saying that our species is completely monogamous, but if you just become a bit more monogamous, if you need a penis bone, if you only have one opportunity with a woman and you might never ever see her again. Whereas you need that penis bone less if she's around, you know, she's your partner. And so suddenly this stuff all makes sense, but you're like, wow, it's weird. Like if you think about it, or logically, it is weird, but it's because we're a byproduct of a different time living today. My one of my favorite examples ever is actually the way I use my phone. So I basically have a repetitive strain injury in my right hand. So that swiping movement that you make with your thumb, I can't do that with my right hand. So I use a stylus, like this fancy pen. And a lot of the time people look at me and they're like, what is that about? And I'm like, let me tell you about evolution, right? Our ancestors never needed to make the swipe motion. Like nobody was sitting there in a cave being like, I need to make a bow and arrow, and this swipe movement is like. So we never evolved for that swipe movement. So it's alien to our hands physiology. Um, and yet we need it today. And you talk to people, so many people have this repetitive strain injury in their thumb. Um, and the irony is when I first developed this injury, it was like about 10 years ago, and it was called Blackberry syndrome because people started getting it when Blackberries came around. And now Blackberries are obsolete. So the technology has moved on. And that's what we're living in. We're living now in a world where the technology is moving so quickly and we're just never, our bodies are never, ever going to keep up ever again. Ever.
I mean, so that do you think that kind of like stunts us in a way where we have maybe too much tech and too much
It's
uh
difficult because do you want to give up the tech? Of course you don't.
yeah, and
But we're not evolved for it. We're 100% not
that's
evolved for it.
yeah. See, it's
We're,
things like that that like the more I think about it, the more I'm just like
yeah.
we're not as in a very very simple term, we're not as cool as we think we are.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like, because people look at me sometimes and they're like, "What are you saying?" And I'm like, "Look, right, I'm if it wasn't for cities and modern medicine and like, all this stuff, like we wouldn't have modern medicine without cities and we wouldn't have cities without farming. It's you know, we are here today because of farming, because somebody invented farming. Somebody had the bright idea to put a seed in the ground and see what happened. But what that has also ushered in is 10,000 years of us becoming more and more and more less and less and less adapted to the world around us. So we're creating a world that we're just not evolved for. We're here. That's good. I mean, like objectively, I'm glad I'm here, but let's not pretend that this is there's a loneliness epidemic because guess what? Like, we evolved for a world where we lived in tribes of like 100, 150 people, whatever. Everybody was basically your dad's relative or, some kind of, and you all knew each other and you were all in it with each other. And now do you know the names of all your neighbors? And your neighbors are realistically people that are going to keep you alive. And
Mhm.
yet, and so I think we can say quite safely that we're not really evolved for this world. But if it wasn't for this world, most of us wouldn't be here. I would be dead, if I was living as a hunter-gatherer because there's been a few times where I almost died. Modern medicine saved me. I
Man,
like being
just
able to see pretty buildings. It's,
yeah, no, yeah, don't get me wrong. I love all this stuff, but it does answer a lot of questions of like little things maybe daily that we're like, why do we do
yeah,
this a certain way? Why do we do that? We're not going to find that in space. We're going to find that in kind of the work that you do.
yeah,
And I think my curious question to you is, in your line of work and in really learning about where we come from, why we do what we do, has that changed your opinion about us a little bit, or like the way you see us on a daily basis? And us, I mean all of us as a whole, including you. What does
yeah.
that do for you as far as your point of view about us?
I think I feel conflicted about us, you know? There's a moment in the series where I basically say it's really hard to know what to make of us because if our ancestors hadn't have been so brilliant, so inventive, so resilient, realistically we wouldn't be here. But on the flip side, our ancestors and us, we're so successful, we're so resilient, we're so brilliant, that it does seem to constantly be at the expense of everything around us. That's a difficult trade-off. I think
Yeah,
yeah, it's a very, very brilliant species. And yeah, it's so I think it's, and it's also understanding that I think most of the times the reasons we do things are not because we're just assholes. It's that we're just so successful that we can't help but bulldoze everything around us. And that helps me. I've got a master's in biodiversity, and it helps me to understand that, look, I think most people aren't sitting there being evil. I think most people are just like, I just want to get on with my life. And just by sheer getting on with my life, like just the byproduct of that is destruction.
Yeah, that's quite the thinker there. I appreciate that so much. Um, with your series, Human, what is your hope? What is your takeaway? What did you enjoy most about working on it?
I mean, let's not pretend that it's not a massive privilege telling our story. Like telling the story of human evolution over 300,000 years, over like seven continents. I got to travel to like 16 odd countries. I got to see things which, I've been obsessed with for many, many years. I got to go to the site where they discovered Homo floresiensis, which is the hobbit human, the human that's like literally like a meter tall, but was still making stone tools and was hunting. It's like absolutely bizarre. I mean, that was like a real rush. I got to go to White Sands and see, it's like on a military base, see these footprints of a mother and a child walking. We think they're the very, very first, or some of the very, very first Americans. That's moving because like every so often she puts the child down and you can see the child's footprints and then it's like the child gets tired and she picks the kid up and sometimes you can see the child's on the left hip, sometimes on the right hip, and it's just it feels so human. We also got to go to a site which we think is like the first undisputed evidence of ritual in the world, in southern Africa. um, and there's like a snake. Well, it's basically like the rock itself inside this cave looks like a snake, and humans had kind of come along and they'd made like these indentations, 300 indentations that make it look like a snake with scales, basically. And then what they also found there, these archaeologists, is lots and lots of stone tools that were really well made and then intentionally damaged or intentionally burnt and left there, like an offering. And that gives you goosebumps because that's ritual. That's like some of the first ritual ever in the world. And, a lot of us have seen that in, churches and synagogues and mosques and temples and what have you. Um, but also, it's not just that it's spirituality, it's that as a species, we do seem to be obsessed with this thing called ritual like no other species sits there going, all right, it's Manny's birthday. Come on, everyone, let's like get birthday cake. No other species is thinking, let's mark the end of the year with celebration. No other species sits there and like has a very particular greeting, like, the way we shake each other's hands. But we also do different things in different cultures. Like there are all these things that we do that I think, as much as the bones are really important and I'm absolutely fascinated with them, sometimes it's this stuff, or it's like the art that you see. Sometimes it's that stuff that moves you more because you're like, oh, this is our ancestors starting to think like us. And
That's go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, no, and no, that was is literally they're starting to think like us, and we're the only ones that think like this. Yeah,
Yeah, see, just again, just more things to think about us, and I think that's really important that we need to do more. My final question, I just in listening to your TED talk, one thing that never really came to my mind until you really talked about it was how you going to some of these places that are in conflict,
yeah.
how making some of these discoveries, how working in their areas could be a sense of pride and hope. Do you have an example of that where and or
Yeah, I mean, there's so many examples. Like I've worked in Iraq and Yemen and Somaliland. Also, we were in uh part of the rainforest in Colombia where FARC territory where it was FARC territory. And you see these incredible discoveries. And what you notice is regardless of what people's politics is, you can't help but be proud of your ancestors, right? You just can't help it. And so there's like this pride that people have. So it's actually something that can sometimes unite people. Not always, but often it can unite like people that wouldn't normally be in the same room. They're like, but the ancestors did well there. Like they did something that was pretty impressive. Um, and I think for me that's part of it. And it's always part of it. And it's one of the cool things about archaeology is you get to ask these really, really adult questions, but with a childlike sense of adventure. Does that make sense? So like you can go off and you can, these questions are profound, right? Like I mean, if you think about the question of our series, it's like all right, most people today look around and they see that we are the most dominant form of life on Earth, and they just assume that as soon as we turned up, the first Homo sapiens was like destined for greatness from the very beginning, like it was written in the stars, you are the chosen one kind of thing. And actually, we were born into a world of at least like six other species. I always joke that we were the Magnificent Seven. And like we were not that special. We really, if you had to place a bet on which species, if you were to line us all up, the Neanderthals, us, the Hobbit, Dragon Man, etc., etc. And yes, there is a species called Dragon Man. And you were to line us up and say, all right, which of these guys is going to make it? You would honestly not put the money on us. And yet, we not only out-survived the others, but we went on to build the pyramids, build like nuclear power plants, build iPhones. Like create art and music that moves people. And you just think, what? Like, if I was to write a story and that was the protagonist, it would be pretty incredible. And so there are these massive, profound questions like, how many species were there? How come we're the ones that succeeded? But you get to do it with adventure. You get to travel the world. You get to, it's difficult to be my kind of archaeologist without being an explorer. Um, and it's a rush. Sometimes it's amazing. Sometimes it's really difficult and challenging, and sometimes it's scary. And even when you're making TV shows about it, so you're not doing the actual research yourself, you're just covering other people's research. It's still a mission. We got. I think I got fleas in one country. The whole team, we came down with fleas. Like, do you know how embarrassing that is? Just fleas. And also I've got like really long hair. Trying to wash this hair with fleas in it was like not fun. Another country, we were like sleeping in rats' nests and they were like destroying like everything. And like it was, and so you still get that kind of there's like a bug that I had at my house that they thought might have come from Peru that like we had to bring out like the exterminators to deal with because it was like I think she brought it back from Peru. It was
Oh
like,
no.
you know. And so it's like but it's kind of cool you answering these really big questions, but with that, that like Lord of the Rings meme, it's time to go on an adventure, like
Yeah,
that kind of yeah. So you're still a kid, basically, is what I'm getting at.
that's amazing.
Playing as an adult.
So it's funny. One of my favorite questions to ask actors is how do you, what's it like for you to be in somebody's shoes who, like, for example, does what you do, and then
Yeah.
you get this great answer. In your case, this is what you do. I think it's amazing. I find you very inspirational,
Oh, bless
and
you.
I want to thank you so much for a few minutes of your time. Like, what is a Homo sapien like me getting a few minutes to chat with somebody like you who does this amazing work?
No, no,
It
no.
means a lot to me. So thank you.
Thank you. But can I just say that
Yes.
first of all, that's so, so kind of you. But can I just say that uh the really cool thing about being a presenter of this is okay, you're not an actor, but what you are is synthesizing, you're like collecting. I'm not kidding, hundreds of people's work, like hundreds of people's work, and you get to be the face of it. But like really, it's so many Homo sapiens collaborating to tell the story of us, whether it's kind of the research or the camera work or like scripting or whatever. So yeah, I'm not an actor, but I get to be the face of a lot of people. So thank you.
Hey, that's what we do. We're a community, right? That's what we always been.
Exactly. There we
I,
go. Comes back to community always.
hopefully we get a chat again in the future. I look forward to it if that's
Thanks,
possible,
Manny,
but
man.
thanks again,
Appreciate it.
and we'll be in touch.